Best of r/malicious compliance episode 82. Subscribe for Reddit videos daily. So I was working this dead-end job at a business that was managed poorly. Due to said poor management, there was occasionally no receptionist, so I, as the lowest in the ranks, had to fill in that role on some days. Mind you, being a receptionist wouldn't have been the worst had the phone routing system worked properly, but since it didn't, the job primarily entailed routing phone calls to the relevant departments. Now, by some stroke of dumb luck, there were 4 pairs of people at this place who shared names with each other, and 3 of the 4 of these pairs contained one person in upper management. To add to this situation, quite a few of the calls were from telemarketers asking to speak to the owner, or the GM, or someone else in management. However, most of these people requested them by first name, and here's where the fun begins. Because these people shared names with some of their underlings, if the marketer failed to mention the last name of the person they were trying to reach, I'd send them to the other person with the same name. Let's just say that I wasn't a popular choice for receptionist. Thank you. Next. A while back I worked at a fantastic Midwestern gas station in the town that I live in. They were pretty short-staffed when I applied and I was kind of desperate for a job, so I was really excited when I joined even part-time. I learned the ropes pretty quickly as there really wasn't too much that differed from previous jobs I've held. My boss, we'll call her Helga, 'cause it's such an ugly name, constantly complimented me on how well I was doing so quickly. It made me feel great. Soon after this, an opportunity for a full-time position became available. Overnights, not ideal but full-time. I quickly accepted and began that training immediately. I was trained partly by the assistant manager, who we'll call Brad. Brad had been at the store for a few years and showed me a few tips and tricks to make the nightly routine go by much quicker. The routine was pretty much the same every night. General cleaning of store, deep cleaning of food/drink makers, restocking, and making breakfast in the morning hours. The only difference came on the delivery nights, which were twice a week. Now, on the overnights, usually only one person is on. On delivery nights, however, a second worker would come in part way through the shift to specifically help with putting the items away so that other work could still be done in a timely manner. Brad was usually that guy. The first few weeks went smooth as butter. One delivery night, however, Brad was sick and no one could cover for him. Not a problem, I thought. I could just do as much of the delivery as possible while still managing to get my other duties done. I managed to get through a good 85% of it, mostly the cold goods and things that needed to be put in the refrigerator and freezer. The remaining items were placed neatly at the end of the food island and out of the way of any customers. I finished my morning duties and waited for my relief. I felt good about what I had done and figured Helga would see my effort and feel the same way. No, I was wrong. Immediately upon entering the store, Helga saw the items still sitting on the floor at the end of the island. She didn't initially say anything, so I didn't think much of it. I waited the last few minutes to clock out and went over to the computer to do so. As I'm about to leave, Helga stops me and pulls me aside. She asks me why hadn't the delivery been put away as usual. I explained to her that Brad had not been in the night before to assist me with the delivery and that I still wanted to be able to finish my other nightly duties. So I did what I thought was necessary and then I moved on. I explained to her that if I hadn't stopped when I did that morning, food would not have been prepared and the next shift would be slammed making food, trying to get out basic stuff along with special orders that inevitably came every morning. She looked at me for a moment before going on a tangent about how delivery is the most important thing to worry about and how I was wrong for doing what I did. I was taken aback because I really thought I had done right, but apparently not. She concluded with next time finish putting the delivery away before anything else. Cue malicious compliance. I had to wait about a month or so before I could actually act on this. Unfortunately, my boss felt it unnecessary to have a second person helping on deliveries anymore. I could not give you the slightest reason as to why, but my time had come. On a nice Thursday night, the delivery arrived approximately 2 hours late. I completed my other duties that could be done prior to delivery. After it was offloaded from the truck, I immediately began working on putting it all away. Backstory to this specific delivery: we had some electrical issues prior which ruined some product and some back ordering as well. which to those that don't know means that some items weren't able to come on the previous truck due to stock issues in the warehouses. So this delivery was huge, like almost twice as many boxes as a usual delivery. But this is priority, so I focused on it. It was about 20 minutes or so before the shift exchange when I finally got finished putting this stuff away, approximately 6 hours from start. But I got it all put away. I was happy. There was one problem. Breakfast wasn't made and nothing was prepped for the Friday sale we have every Friday for pizza. Usually I would have had 10 or so pizzas prepared for the next shift so they can just whip them into the oven and start on other things. I also usually had the breakfast area full of fresh sandwiches and whatnot. But not today. Shift change happens and Helga walks in with a smile on her face. She notices that this time there are no boxes on the end of the island and seems ecstatic, until she walks a little further down the line and notices that there's not food in the warmer. She then goes to the kitchen to look in the fridge and notices there are no pizzas prepared. Her face turned a shade of red I've never seen before and she immediately returned to the front and called me back. I complied and walked to the back with her, fully knowing what was about to come. She exploded at me asking why there was no food prepared and that today is a busy day and that she wasn't going to stand for this kind of laziness. I let her finish her rant before I answered. Well, the delivery was a bit bigger this time because of all the extra stuff and honestly I am surprised I got it done, but I got it done cause that's what you told me to do. I wish Brad would have been here to help. This delivery was huge. I clocked out after a few more minutes of her again telling me I was wrong and all that yada yada. I didn't really care to continue the conversation and I knew I had made my point. I came back a couple of hours later to buy some things for home. The poor kitchen staff were still struggling to get enough food out to satiate the morning crowd. But at least the delivery was put away. Thank you. Next. So I recently started working at a new job at a Canadian retail company that has online services. My job is mainly to pick items that were ordered online from the store aisles or from our warehouse, arrange for them to be picked up, and have them ready to go by a set time every day. We average about 5 to 6 items per day, most going to places that are between a half-hour to a 2-hour drive distance, depending on the direction it goes as other retail stores can cover the same area better than we can. Now I live in a smallish city and the company that picks up the online purchases, with a lack of a local terminal, have to go to the capital to their sorting site before traveling to their destination. This means a minimum of 2 days before it gets to a customer, but could be up to a week depending on delays. So we reach out and try to convince customers that live locally to pick up their purchases. Usually once they realize that it would take 20 minutes to get their item and without charging the extra cost of delivery, most are willing to pick their items up. Now, of course, there are the exceptions. I'm not talking about the elderly and physically disabled who cannot make such a trip. We implemented at our store a delivery exemption initiative for these people. We deliver it to them for free. No, we are talking about this one customer. He lives literally down the street from the store, as in a 3-minute drive down the street, as in we have employees who walk past his house, and he ordered not 1, not 2, but 3 items, put just over $500 on his credit card for this, and wanted them shipped out to him via the delivery company. We saw immediately that it would cost him almost half on top of WHST he is paying for the items to ship these. I forgot to mention that all postage is paid by the customer. So I called the customer, explaining that where his purchases were coming from, the extra cost and time of delivering these through the company, and that he could save both if he came to pick up the items he ordered. His response: I have ordered these online and I expect that they will be sent. I clearly try to explain that his items were coming from down the street, not from a store elsewhere in the province. His response: I don't care where they come from. I expect my online order to be delivered as you would with anyone else. Okay, will do. Cue malicious compliance. After hanging up, we did as asked. I let the manager know about this order and his instructions, which he laughs at and shrugs his shoulders. We picked his items, scheduled a delivery for said items, had all 3 picked up. Delivery guy looks at the delivery address, looks at me and gives me a WTF look. I explained that he wanted it shipped like all other online deliveries. He laughs, shakes his head, and takes the items. So the next couple days I track the order as it travels over 2 hours to the sorting facility, stays overnight, is on the truck for delivery and finally is signed by the guy. Not an hour later he's at the store, demanding the cost of his delivery back. Manager explains that we tried to help him but, in his own words, shipped his online order as we would as anything else. Thank you. Next. I used to manage a store that sold primarily nuts and bolts. Most everything smaller than 7/8 inch diameter or M16 diameter came in pre-packaged bags. There are signs everywhere that say we do not break package quantity. So of course several times a day we get, well, I only need 3. Why do I have to buy 100? Just as an example. First, let me explain why we sell that particular item in a bag of 100. The bag costs less than $3. If I sell you 3, that 9-cent transaction is not worth my time. Secondly, I now have a broken package of 97 I can't sell. So here is my daily malicious compliance. My company allowed me, the manager, to override prices and type in whatever I want. So I would look up the price of the whole package, ring up the quantity they wanted, adjust the price to the price of the full package, and throw the rest of the package in the trash can right next to the register. People would lose their minds. It was hilarious every time. Unfortunately most people didn't ask the price of the full package, but the ones that did, oh boy, that was a treat all on its own. You mean to tell me these 3 washers are $1 a piece? How much was the whole bag? $3? How is that possible? And I would just reply bulk discount. Only thing I miss about that job was messing with people like that. To clarify, I had to limit this to once or twice a day because it would mess with my margin, inventory, and cost of goods if I did it all the time. Thank you. Next. I work at a chain retail discount home goods store where the main demographic is older women. We have a very clear and somewhat strict return policy due to the amount of people that have abused returns in the past, stealing and returning to launder money, but it's simple and printed at the bottom of every receipt. Unused merchandise can be returned with the original receipt and packaging within 30 days. Simple as that. Today I had an older woman, probably late 60s/early 70s, come in with a return. I give my usual, anything wrong with it or did it just not work out for you? As she hands over the bag with the receipt. No, it's a headband, but when I unwrapped it I realized it's not the style I wanted, she explained. Alright, I said as I took the headband out of the bag. No packaging, no tag, no screw, just a piece of grey fabric, a bandeau wrap, if you know what that is. I'm sorry, Mom, but I can't take this as a return since there isn't any packing or SKU number, I said. What? But I have the receipt. That's all I need for a return. She was already getting snappy and angry with me, and when customers act like this, it just makes me want to help them less. Nevertheless, I kept my customer service smile and voice on for her. Mom, at the bottom of your receipt here you can see where our return policy is stated, I explained calmly while pointing out the policy to her. Well, the receipt should be all I need. I want my money back. At this point I'm done arguing with her. I ask her if she wants to speak to my manager regarding the policy and of course she says yes. I go to the office to get my manager, mid-60s, who's on an important conference call with the other managers of the district. I explain what's happening to her and she says, oh, we'll get this straightened, with a smirk on her face. I follow my manager out of the office and back to the register where the woman is still pouting. Now, my manager doesn't put up with any crap and trusts me probably more than any other employee to deal with irate customers, but she knows that since I'm only 20, a lot of these older women refuse to take what I say seriously and will only hear it from the mouth of someone much older. My manager opens the bag and looks at the woman with a straight face. So no packaging? Not even a tag? She asks. No, the woman replies, this time a little less aggressively. Accepting this return would be breaking company policy, my manager says bluntly, but it isn't worth losing a customer over $2.99, so we'll do it this one time. Please keep your tags in the future, she says. Cue the malicious compliance. My manager turns to me as I input the return into the pose and says firmly so that the customer can hear, damage it out and throw it away. Make sure you destroy it, too. So I do as I'm told. I grab the scissors from my register's pencil cup and begin hacking away at the headband, slicing it up as messily as I can right over the counter in front of the customer. "What are you doing?" she almost yells at me. "We're very serious about following company policy here, Mom, and since you don't have the original packaging or tags, we can't resell this," I say as I chuck the shredded bits of fabric in the trash can. "I could have used that as a dust rag," she protests. At this point I know for a fact that my manager is sitting in the office quietly listening and snickering to herself. I finish up the return and give the woman her $2.99 back with a friendly, "Have a nice evening," as she walks out the door. The woman in line behind her comes up to the register, and as I'm scanning her items she says, "You don't realize how stupid and entitled the general public is until you work retail." I couldn't agree more. Thank you. Next. My mom and dad got married in 1981 at 18 years old and have been happily-ish most of the time married since. To make the complexities of their dynamic brief, my mom is a type A, Minnesota nice suburban housewife. She's the kind of friend who will hold your hand at chemotherapy appointments and pick up your kids from school if they're sick but you're at work. My dad is an eccentric successful financial fiduciary and has been a highly functional stoner alcoholic since maybe 1975. My dad brings in all the money but has no control over it. Mom does exemplary bookkeeping and makes sure everything is paid. One day, in 2011, my mom was complaining to my father about the finances and, frustrated, my father snapped at her, "Well, if you don't like it, why don't you go out and get a job, then?" Mom basically said fine. She got a nannying job for a couple with one kid. She tidies up and folds laundry and makes $30K/year. It's not much but it helps her pay a few bills and the family absolutely love her, so she gets Christmas presents and gets to go on trips with them when they travel for work. The youngest is 16 at this point, so there's no more little kids to take care of at the home. But now dad has to get used to doing the dishes and making dinner and waiting for somebody to come home to him. Us kids made semi-sarcastic remarks about how mom found a new family and was abandoning us. Everything worked out well. The family had a second baby, so now she brings in a good $50K to help with the bills, and dad and the family got used to the changes. I think my mom feels really fulfilled in her job and it helped the kids gain some extra independence before college. I'm 24 now and learning to balance working hard and keeping a home life. My parents are still happily married and I look to them as role models. Thank you. Next. 2 heads up. I posted this earlier in Pro Revenge, but I'm posting it here too because it fits. Also, this is actually one from my dad. That said, let's buckle up. My dad was a general surgeon in the air. The hospital was collecting some internal info on who was doing what jobs, and it turned out that the ER was having a lot of non-cardio specializing doctors doing EKGs. The reason for this was pretty simple. The cardiologists tend to be busy, and the results in the ER have to be read really fast. In order to be fast, they'd just read the EKGs themselves, as the results generally weren't subtle. It can be hard to tell some heart problems from others, but in the ER, all you really need is a quick peek to go, shit, this guy is having a heart attack. The cardiology department got upset about this and said that doctors shouldn't get paid for doing EKGs as it isn't their specialty. The management was pretty chill, so they said that they didn't really care who did the EKG, they just needed the results to be in within 30 minutes of them being requested. For the first few days, this just resulted in the doctors on the floor reading the EKGs unpaid. Not a huge deal, but kind of a nuisance. Then during a night shift, my dad sold the other docs on an idea. The first part of the idea comes from a hospital policy. Technically, if a patient came in with chest pain, you had to do an EKG. The ER was infamous for being swamped, so management turned a blind eye to the actual enforcement of this policy. There is a way to save time. If someone comes in with chest pain and a hacking cough, for example, they're probably not having a heart attack, they probably have pneumonia, and you should start your diagnostic with that. This combined with the second part of the idea, which was, what if they actually rigorously enforced the first policy and asked for an EKG on all chest pain patients, while following the second policy of handing the EKGs to the cardio department? Either cardio crumbles first and lets them just do their damn just, or management crumbles first and removes the silly EKG rule. Either result is a win. EZPZ. Thus began the most brutal 2 days of the cardiology department's life. There handles a much larger flow of patients than the cardiology department is prepared to deal with. They're a specialist division, so they're not supposed to handle a particularly large volume of patients in a single day. This meant that they quickly got swamped by the sheer flow of patients in from the air. Oh, but it gets worse. Docs work ungodly hours, and when the staff set up the deal, there was the agreement that the cardiologists had to get the results back within 30 minutes, and the cardiologists were getting a request for an EKG reading every 25 minutes. They could handle the reading that fast, but as the doctors were on call, they'd get only another 15 minutes or so to try and sleep before they'd get woken up to read another chart. Again, and again, and again. By my dad's guess, they kept the entire cardiology department up for about 40 consecutive hours before they begged for a surrender. Second meeting was held, and the cardiologists demanded to be released from the previous policy. This was granted, and peace returned to the hospital.